that are sunny. Looking back, it was all needed. The problems, the pain, the trauma, the grieving. You are now tuned into the prisoner to painter. Prisoner to painter. Hard work, dedication. Rainy days, inspiration. Prisoner to painter. And now, a word from your local Pope dealer.
I totally understood. It needed no explanation.
We are live.
Awesome. Welcome to the Prisoner to Painter podcast. As always, I'm going to try to quit saying it. I'm Nathan McDermott.
I'm Katie McDermott.
And today joining us is Jerome
Vierling.
Vierling, yeah.
I'll say I'm related and I still can't. I forget how to pronounce it. Man, thank you for coming on. Seriously, I appreciate it. Normally I just could dive right. This is always where I have a hard time transitioning. But seriously, thank you for coming on. One person recommended that I start saying what you do for a living before we get all into the podcast. Would you mind saying where you work or what you do for a living?
Yeah, I mean, it's always loaded when I tell somebody I'm a pastor.
Yep.
Because that comes with a lot of baggage or stereotypes for people, but I'm a pastor.
Okay. In
the people business, seeing people at their worst, believing that God can bring redemption out of any broken situation, you know?
Yeah.
And he can, just change things for glory and goodness.
What is your, because I know, what is your second love?
Oh, yeah. And I also do music. So music ministry, like using music to communicate part of my story and then also share faith, but connect in a real way, like through hip hop music and different styles of music. Done that for a long time. Yeah. So that's probably what you mean too, right?
Yeah. Well, no, I just wanted to know, because that your first path clearly is what everybody knows you for, but or people that know you know that. But the second one is like that's helped my transition into recovery and everything. And your music is powerful. I'm still stuck on. I still got that CD, Second Coming, with your face on it. That I've listened to some of your newer stuff, but that still is my my go-to. So
and that's
incredible.
That was different seasons when, depending on my 20s or 30s, that was really big part of not only my healing journey, but also then helping other people.
Yeah.
And then now it's just an extension of that. You just kind of go from each stage of life.
Yeah. Well, seeing your transformation there, man. I mean, I haven't followed, but watching you and then listening to your first music and then now watching your music videos. Like,
that music video was fire.
Yeah,
the one with the factories and stuff. We had other people in on it.
When we came and said hi, that music video was like it was incredible. I mean that's like some Snoop Dogg or like that. That's a professional stuff. Yeah. Seriously, man.
Thank you.
Okay, well here we go from childhood to where you are now. So in a broad statement, how would you say your childhood was?
Ooh, let's dive right in the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, out the gate, I like to tell people if they've ever seen this TV show called Cheers, it's way back, it's oldie, where everybody knows your name. Mm-hmm. That's what the tag was for the Cheers song. Originally coming from a little tiny village of Pinckney, it's like Cheers. You know, my grandpa was the barber. My great grandma on my mom's side, the Performing Arts Theater, was named after her. And we just lived in this little village. And then at 9 years old, my parents got divorced and my mom picked up me and my brother and we went to the huge old town of Mason, which is outside of Lansing. And it felt like, oh, wow, my cousins' relatives used to call us City Boy. And even in Mason, they call me City Boy because we lived in the city, even though it was a farm town. And then that was a real, difference of my upbringing up till that point. My dad was a stay-at-home dad. Now I'm with my mom. Parents were divorced at 9. And that was a little bit, obviously, of a whiplash looking back. It really impacted my life. But God, took those broken pieces, like I was saying, and he did that in my story. But then I just fast forward was, you're loving sports. That was my world, sports were an idol for me. And then at 15, I realized I wasn't going to go pro, being a 5'6" height dude. But this is way back in the day before the internet. So I'm 45 now. So we're talking late 80s, early 90s. If you were as good at like a sport on your own city or your own block, you thought you could really make it. But at 15, I realized, man, that's not happening. Yeah. And so at that point, man, the dark side was calling.
Yeah.
And I just started, using and abusing all kinds of substances, living 2 lives, all the way up to 22 is where I had a real dramatic life change. So that's the fast forward version of just my childhood. And I also was, to the rap music piece, I started during that time when I was using and abusing, I was making rap music and was using it for all the wrong reasons, but that stuff was really an outlet though too,
Well, I am nosy, so I'm gonna dig on
Yeah,
some
no,
stuff in there.
go all in.
Definitely.
Whatever you want.
One thing though, I forgot that he was your grandpa. He gave me my first haircut.
Mm.
Did he give you your first haircut?
He did.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It seems like that's a growing trend in our family. It seems
Yeah.
like that. I forget he's your grandpa. I don't know why I forgot.
Yeah, that's my mom's dad.
Okay.
So, and then they got divorced, and then they had 2, my mom had her step family next door. So, I mean, a little tiny village where my grandparents were divorced, but they lived right next to each other.
Yeah.
So not knowing the dynamics of that as a kid, just it's two different worlds. I was grateful because I got to see both grandparents.
Yeah.
And my mom always did a good job of making sure that I was deeply connected with both sides, but I didn't understand all of the relational
it's funny.
like triage, if you will, or trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not funny, but my grandma and grandpa were the same way. But as much as I've seen both of them, and my grandma with my grandpa, but they weren't together. It was. You're right. It was a lot for a small kid to wrap his mind around, especially my grandma at her Christmas. Like it was strange.
You said you played sports. What sports you play?
Yeah. So, football, basketball, baseball. My dad is actually an identical twin, and my first cousin, he made it to the NFL. So I just let you know the level of, we were really serious, but that was it. Sports were God, and it was do everything to try to make it. And a lot of people have that kind of story, and then you got to find your identity and hope and in other areas. But kind of when that's taken away from you, if you will, you just double down on trying to find your worth or community and belonging in wrong sectors too often. And that was my story. But basketball was the one thing that I continued all the way through, varsity in high school, and then actually high school year, because I say this is Prisoner to Painter, right? Podcast. So my junior year, I got in a bunch of trouble and going into my senior year in the summer. And so I caught a case that we were out, being idiots. And my senior year, I was actually ineligible, and I was doing jail time on weekends in high school. So you're talking a Class A school, Mason. Everybody knew my name. I was, on varsity junior year, and then my senior year prom, I was doing jail time on, the weekends. So I looked super young. And I remember when I checked in on a Friday night, these cats were roasting me. I'm like, man, what'd you get in trouble for? Stealing tricycles? It was just, but doing weekends in high school was a real change from playing Friday night, for the game the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And then here you find yourself senior year. Prom, people are at prom and I'm sitting in jail.
Do you get to go to your junior prom?
Yeah, that one was traumatic, but it's all good. Girlfriend left me at that one, but hey, I broke some hearts too, so. It was, I went to that one, but that wasn't a goodie.
Right.
Man.
That one was crazy. It was wild, but hey, each his own.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna ask a couple more things for
Hey,
childhood,
dive in.
and then I got a couple more. But clearly, what's your favorite cartoon?
Oh, as a kid, I loved it all. I loved He-Man, Gummy Bears, Donald Duck, whatever the Duck Troop or whatever that one was.
Mm-hmm.
Looney Tunes. So I don't know if I had a favorite. It was all of it. Give it all to me. I loved sci-fi. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I remember I was a huge gamer too.
Okay.
Games. In 1986, we had the Atari 2600.
Yep.
And then we had Nintendo. And then I remember Commodore 64, my uncles had at my grandparents' house. And so there was that was huge. So I when you ask cartoons, I also think just that whole world of creative outlet from gaming, all of it was a lot of fun, man. That era is just, I'm biased, but that's my favorite.
I just really want the guys, the people listening to really. My goal is for them to see you more than what they would see you on the street, like to really know you.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked some of these.
Off the wall.
So
I don't think that's off the wall. I think that shapes you. That's good.
Yeah.
I think you're diving into it. Like for me, looking back, I remember even one time my wife and I we got in a big kind of disagreement, or let's call it a fascination.
Yeah.
I remember how one leader, he put it this way. He's like, move frustrations to fascinations. So the language. So we had a fascination. I said, man, I want to play video games early on in our marriage. She was like, I didn't think I was going to be married to someone who's gaming all day long. And I said, I'm not gaming all day long. But her perspective of video games was that. My perception was video games were like, they were a babysitter. They were a creative outlet. They were a safe space. Mm-hmm. So the more we were able to talk about that, thinking back to my childhood of how video games were an outlet for me and in a place of refuge, yep. She was like, dang, I didn't know it was all that. So that was beautiful. And yeah, that was really cool. So that's way past the surface. Yeah. But video games were that outlet for health and structure.
Well, it's funny because that's why the next question, what's your favorite cereal? Most people, they think it's funny, but I think it speaks to a lot more. Mine was sugary, and because my parents didn't, I had great parents. They didn't give a shit. Just give stuff. Just give them cereal, whatever. Yeah. Other people like Cheerios, no sugar. It's like, I think it speaks to how you were raised. So,
good.
So I mean, I think it does.
Yeah, mine was a free-for-all too as well. And not because my mom or dad didn't want me to be healthy. It's just kind of, it was a free-for-all. Like maybe we didn't know that, or I don't know, but mine was Cocoa Krispies, and not just the Cocoa Pebbles, but Cocoa Krispies. Mm-hmm. Now you only got maybe 30 to 45 seconds before they get soggy.
Yep.
But those 30 to 45
that
seconds.
Snap, crackle, pop, I'm telling you what.
And let's be real. If you're going to have cereal, it's all about the milk to cereal ratio. Some people want it drowned in it. Some people want just enough. I'm in the just enough category. Yep. So Cocoa Krispies is number one.
Crunchy. You gotta have that crunchy. I want it crunchy.
I want it crunchy. Other people don't. They want to, and they want to drink the chocolate milk at the end. I'm like, no, I want to put more cereal so I can then the milk is all gone by the end.
Yep.
So that was number one. Chocolate.
I agree.
Cereal through the Cocoa Krispies.
Mm-hmm. Man, mine's Fruity Pebbles.
Mine's
fruity, but it's sugary as heck. So there ain't nothing fruity about it.
Mine was frosted mini wheats, but the strawberry ones, because my grandparents had them all the time, and I'm like.
Well, the second favorite because of that was the old people cereal. The Post with like the strawberries, but that's
like Special K.
Yeah, it's like that. That was the second favorite. Not because anything else besides that's all we had in the house.
And the perception was that was healthy, even though you look at the sugar content, it's the same as Cocoa Krispies.
Yeah,
seriously, it was that like diet cereal where it was like,
I guess it had maybe a little bit more fiber, but I don't know if I go that far.
Okay, so
man, I apologize.
You're good. So we kind of got up to you getting in trouble. Do you mind speaking on what it was, or?
Yeah, we were out stealing car stereos, and I look at it like this way: is I got addicted to thrills. Mm-hmm. So when you get addicted to thrills and dopamine, you find yourself trying to recreate that moment again. And looking all the way back, it might be at 9 getting in a fist fight. It might be 10 out toilet papering. It might be 11 taking the car and driving. But that progresses. In hindsight's always 20/20. But I can look back now and say, getting addicted to the thrills was okay. What's the next thrill? And you can find yourself in situations where you're either influencing or being influenced. Mm-hmm. Now, I had a real good friend who rests in heaven, who's not here, who I was with that day, but from his context, have you ever heard that phrase where people say, you can complain about having no shoes till you meet the man with no feet? Mm-hmm. So he was that for me. His upbringing was so hard. And he went through so much stuff. Lost his mom at a young age. Was originally from New York. Several of his siblings he lost as well. And so he was the one who would live with us. And we were a safe space for him, even though we had, our own challenges as well. Mm-hmm. And so we were out and just, hey, like, let's get stereos, let's sell them. And so that's what it was. And, being 17 years old, we got tried as an adult, but, I'm grateful they put me in a program where that eventually got off my record once it was completed, which was huge, favor, luck, grace, how anybody ever wants to think about it. And I eventually got to see that judge like 15 years later. And I remember he said this to me. He goes, "I'm going to be hard on you, but you have opportunity. And if you complete this, you won't have that on your record." And so I wish that was the only time I was arrested. I mean, God gave me, it's kind of like 9 lives, gave me many chances, but that's what happened at that moment. But I eventually got to see that judge and thank him, like, "Hey, thanks for being hard on me." He didn't remember me, and I thanked him. I didn't understand it then, but if I would complete and do the hard things and not just look for the path of least resistance or whatever was easiest or whatever felt the funnest, it's the age old thing, like money, power, respect. It's like what you need in life is I think the Lock song was, it's like, no, we don't need any of that. It's like character is more important than all that. Integrity is more important than all that, but even if my parents were saying, I probably wasn't listening. So it's not knocking anybody. There's a quote that I love. It's the teacher presents itself when the student's ready to learn and ready to listen. So the teacher was always there in life. I just wasn't willing to listen. So that's what went down. And we were out and we thought, hey, one more, but somebody watched the whole thing, called the cops, and the rest was history.
Was there a tipping point in terms of one day you didn't just wake up and go steal a car?
Well, yeah. Is that where would you say that your story started? Like,
yeah, it's those thrills. It goes back. It's like, no joke. I mean, I think it's a 1-for-1. It's the same thing. If you don't know how to rule it, it'll rule you. So just whether somebody's a Christian or not, it goes all the way back to in Genesis, where God tells Adam and Eve to rule over all of creation. But yet then the next chapter, they're negotiating with creation, and the snake who shows up in a way that says, hey, did God really say? And that starts to get the question, okay, God's goodness for your life, that God is enough, and that the very thing that they were supposed to be in charge of, now they find themselves subjected to and being influenced by. So I look back, all of these things I wasn't ruling in its appropriate way. It wasn't like anything was bad per se, but it was starting to become, it got a hold of me. I didn't get a hold of it. So I wasn't ruling it. And it goes back to video games. Like, I wasn't ruling it. You just go from maybe 1 hour and then you're staying up all night. And then you want to skip school the day the games drop, or you want to skip school when the new music drops. So it's all good, but it became out of control. It was I really believe it's a 1-for-1. Then you find yourself addicted to a new thrill, out toilet paper and egging somebody's house, staying up all night, playing poker, hanging out with different girls coming over, you know what I mean? And you don't know how to really control those things. So then you get new highs. So then as you're introduced to a new high, you think, oh man, I never do drugs. Well, it's a new thrill. Yeah. And then you become like, it's like working out. When people say you get a new PR, you get a new personal record, and you want to get a new high. They call it with, heroin, like chasing the dragon. Mm-hmm. No one that can ever get that high again. So that's where did it start? It started with that, not being able to rule whatever new fun thrill was introduced into my world. And then when you do one thing that's out of pocket, you kind of start to build up a tolerance, and you think, then it goes from 1 to 1. It goes from one thing to the next. So it's just really one arena. And when people say gateway drug, I think the gateway drug was just not being able to rule these things that started to rule me early on.
Yeah. So you said 17 to 22 was pretty much you got saved at 22, right?
No, 22. Yeah.
Okay, so before I ask you about 17 to 22, because I tried to go in fast, what was your favorite memory from childhood?
Oh, that's a good one. Probably say my favorite memory was going to Gus Macker tournaments with the family, which is a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. And we would travel. 3-on-3 basketball tournaments. You got 4 players. That was one of the favorite memories.
Cool.
Or going to spring training, baseball down in Florida with the family was really cool. Or just hanging out, yeah. Okay,
it wouldn't be our show if I didn't ask. What's your least favorite memory from childhood?
Yeah. I want to be honoring to be tactful. I want to be as real, but I also want to be honoring to people.
Yep.
So it's challenging to to navigate that right now, but
Okay.
because I want to give enough texture, but at the same time, I really want to be covering enough, because I really think that's people did that for me too.
Understood.
There's a verse that says love covers a multitude of sins, and that's what love does. It covers, it protects. So I got some least moments for sure, but we'll keep it G-rated in surface level. Yeah, that's
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect. But that was very tactful and graceful, because some people just told me to. So thank you for that. So 17 to 22. When did you get off probation? Let's say, because you said that he was going to be hard on you,
Yeah.
but you're going to get off of it. So was it your probation?
Yeah, no, 2 years.
Okay.
2 years. I mean, I wish everyone's story is not the same. Where life is so fascinating. Where somebody who would have gotten in trouble what I did maybe wouldn't have gotten the same opportunity that I had.
Mhm.
So the judge for someone else's situation might have not given them the opportunity to get that erased off their record.
Yeah.
So there could be somebody listening to this and they're frustrated that that wasn't their path. But each one of us have our own path and our own race to run, if you will. So for me, it took 2 years, and I was doing drops 3 times a week, and I actually failed a few times. So it was just really grace and mercy that took place. But even after that, once I got off, there was a couple of different cases that I got caught as well, and that was more drug related. And there wasn't enough evidence at times, or there was just certain situations where, like, man, by the grace of God, looking back, but for the 2 years I got off, I would have loved to say, hey, I learned my lesson then at 19, but I didn't. So 19 to 22, I'm still living that world. But I'm working at a magazine right out of high school, because my mom was a publisher of a magazine. And that was a great opportunity to be able to work there by day. So when most people think someone's dealing with addiction, they have a certain view in their mind. They might picture somebody on the corner, or holding a sign. Or I was a high-level functioning addict, where I was in the business world by day, and I was still dealing and partying by night, and even during the day, to support my habit, things like that. So it was just never enough, and I just kept going on and on. So I got arrested several more times, but all the situations, eventually, I got thrown out, or there was different reasons where I didn't get convicted. So that was huge. And so it wasn't as clear as I was on it for 2 years and off.
Gotcha.
It was crazy.
Understood.
When did you start using?
15, all kinds of drugs.
Was it
There
something
was always
that
no needles, no guns. So I'm grateful, never got into needles, and there was, but almost everyone in our community did afterwards.
Was it something that you ran into one day, or like a peer pressure? Somebody introduced
Peer
it to
pressure.
you?
I remember there was a summer where there was just a guy who's not alive as well. He just was like, man, try this. And I was like, no way. And actually first time I tried getting high, smoking weed specifically, I didn't get high.
Yeah.
And it took me a few times, but I just kept pushing through. I was like, whatever. And at that point, once you break the ice, you find yourself on a very slippery slope.
Mhm.
It's a snowball effect in a negative way. And really what you're trying to find is belonging. You're trying to deal with your own sense of purpose, or your own hurts and frustrations as a person. And you're looking for an outlet, and you want to be accepted. But I wrote this in a song. It's like, misery loves company. But when I was broke, in jail, or whatever, sad and lonely, who called me in those moments? So you really get to find out who's your friends. And there's no honor amongst thieves. So we all did stuff that I don't think any of us are proud of. But you really got to find out who was really for you. It was really cool once I made the life change. A lot of my friends supported it so much. We're like, man, don't come back. We love what you're doing. Get out of here. Stay out of here. So there was that sense of, no, we're happy for you. We're proud of you. It wasn't like, oh, you betrayed us, like, forget you. No, it was like, no, man, like, help us too.
Yeah.
So we were all in it. And the same thing I'm learning, I want to learn together, because I'm not better than anybody, that kind of vibe. And but that's what it was peer pressure for sure. But I could say peer pressure. I could have said no.
Mhm.
When you're nothing good happens after 10 type vibe.
Yeah.
I was out. I was there.
Yep.
I was listening. I was seeing how far the line is. You're like, okay, where's the cliff? Where's the cliff? You know, where's the new thrill? I keep going back to thrills because it really is that. People don't think one for one. And a lot of times people are just coping with pain. It's a one for one. Like you're really coping with your own pain and not having those pathways and healthy outlets on how to process pain. So a lot of times when we look for substances to hopefully mask the pain, but you can't. It doesn't go away. It makes it worse. So it might hide it for a moment. And there's cats listening to this right now, whether that's alcohol or different substances. What there really is just not being able to look in the mirror of what's going on. And then how do you take personal responsibility, extreme ownership, and then go from here to there.
So one last question before I'll say the good part of the story, because my favorite part is
in the end.
Well, not the end, but when we start going into like, you know, when we get into the being saved or finding grace or whatever the story,
the turning point.
I ask everybody this that know anything about substances, because I clearly my substance use disorder or whatever you want to call it. If somebody told you the truth about it, do you think you'd be more likely to abuse or less likely? And what I mean is, yes, this drug will make you feel wonderful. It'll take all your feelings away, but it's going to ruin your life. Like nobody was straightforward with me. I only heard the good, not the bad.
Or that drugs are bad.
Yeah.
Blanket statements.
Yeah, drugs are bad, but then you do it and you're like, this isn't bad.
Hey, fair. Sin is fun for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being high, it's called being high. But what you don't realize is a sobering reality is that you're on a path of destruction. Yeah. And when the enemy, whatever that might mean for somebody, but let's just, in my worldview, like the kingdom of darkness, Satan will try to lure you on a path that many are on. And it's easy to then travel on. And you will have fun for a moment, but it leads to death.
Mm-hmm.
And you find yourself, it's death at some point, and it is a dead end. So I was aware that was death. And I can think back to 4th grade, sitting in DARE class. DARE was still, what does it stand for?
Drug Resistance Education.
There you go. Yeah. So went through the DARE class, and at the end of it, you have to do a project about what you learned. Mm-hmm. We did a rap song in 1989, 4th grade. So that was like, looking back to my story, that's how I just really loved rap music. I love the culture from sports, and it just kind of was woven the same. But I really got into hip hop in the late 80s and then early 90s. Like Public Enemy, Fear of a Black Planet was on repeat. Sir Mix-a-Lot. That stuff was really influencing me. So I did a rap song, here's the irony, at a DARE event. So I knew that this is bad, but I don't think fear causes people to obey. No. So if laws causes people to obey, well, how come there's so many people in jail? Why do you use speed? So it's not laws. Laws can be healthy to create direction, border, and orders, but rebellion comes from just like only being told what to do. But when you have a relationship, it can lead to obedience. The rules lead to rebellion. The relationship leads to obedience. So me not having a healthy relationship, even with myself, loving myself, understanding love and self-worth and character and who I am first and foremost. So I think it's important that we don't just talk about the dangers of drugs or even say the benefits of drugs. It's like, first and foremost, who are you? Yeah. Like, who are you? Do you love yourself? Then how do you then want to move about with your actions? But if you're living feelings based, if you're hurting, now here's an outlet. You don't care. You don't know if it leads to death or not. There's not enough fear. There's not enough rules. There's not enough laws you could tell somebody. So it really comes back to who are you, in my opinion. Yeah. Like identity. Like, who are you, Jerome? You know, my name means sacred. If I would have thought of the meaning of my name, the depth of my name, like, what does someone sacred do? How do they live? Do they do drugs? They probably don't.
Probably don't. Yeah.
So I was living secular, you know, scared. So many different ways than actually who I am as a person. Mm-hmm. So when I realized that love is coming from God to me first and foremost, and if I accept that, no matter what's happened around me, well, I can decide, who am I going to be? Am I going to bloom where I'm planted? Am I going to contribute or consume?
Yeah.
So these people might hear just these phrases or like one-liners. It's like, no, man, this comes from a deep place of knowing who in the world am I, and what am I going to, how am I going to use my life to benefit others, or just go about and be bitter and mad and justify my actions.
Right.
Like I feel this way, because pain lashes out. Hurt people hurt people.
Yep.
And heal people heal people. And so I was hurting. And I didn't have the framework to look back and think. So I don't think there was enough stuff people could have told me the warning, because it was like, nah, man, once you like them thrills, you really don't know who you are. You've heard the warnings, but still you're like, let me play with, you start playing with fire and forget that fire is meant for the fireplace.
I also feel like some hurt people. I feel like some hurt people who get into things like that, they kind of hurt so bad that they welcome the pain and the death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they realize that it's there, but they welcome it because they're hurt so bad that would be a release in itself.
Yeah.
So numbing, and then it's like, oh, I don't care what happens because I already feel this way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If there was one person, alive or dead, you could have a conversation with, who would it be?
My kids just asked me this the other night, and we were talking about, okay, be Jesus or somebody in the Bible. But for me, I was like, okay, let's make that all those names exempt for a second. Like you can't pick those names.
Yep.
I would pick my grandpa Edward, my dad's dad, just because I never met him and I have his middle name.
Okay. Cool. Cool. That's very cool. Okay.
Anybody musically?
Yeah, that's what I was leaning towards, but I like that. That's cool.
I mean, music, I feel like I've gotten to meet so many different people I geek out. When I love someone as a musician, I read their stories, I read their wiki, I watch all the videos, even if they weren't alive anymore. And I've never been a fanboy, meaning I take your art for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I can learn from your life, but I don't need to be you.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't even need to meet you.
Yep.
Like I'm grateful for who you are. And so that's that self-worth that we should all have. Is like, we want to get someone's signature out of honor, let's say, but don't discount your signature and what yours is worth, because you're made in the image of God. I'm made in the image of God, and every person is equal in worth. So we can honor people, learn from people in a form of respect or even esteem in them. And I don't want to make it too deep, but this is real for me, is I actually don't care if I meet them at some level too. Yeah. And period. So I don't even know who I'd want to meet. And
fair enough.
Period.
No, I agree, because I'm on that same thing, like hearing people cry when celebrities pass. I personally don't care about one person, celebrity wise.
He wouldn't even recognize them in public.
No,
like,
I
they
really,
could walk by
you know, I'm like, but same thing. I appreciate what you do, like Denzel Washington. The form of art, but I wouldn't care.
And it means a lot, and I don't want to discount it. And people have felt that pain, from watching how they respond to artists and stuff. But you're asking me, so I want to meet my grandpa Edward, and I don't even know if there's any other musician. Shout out to him.
Cool. Heck yeah.
Yeah. Local is global. He played music, so I want to meet him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So 22, you get saved. How does that look like?
Yeah. Well, that's the turning point. And I haven't been. Let's just lay this out here.
Okay.
People have this idea that people that are religious, which religious just means that you follow a sect order of beliefs, or it's a way of life from a belief system. But religion, let's establish this, religious leaders are the ones that killed Jesus. So religion and under rules and under belief, sometimes you could forget the why behind the what. Now you're just doing the stuff, but you actually don't remember why you're doing it. So for me, I actually showed up at church on an Easter Sunday in Mount Hope Church in Lansing. It was the church that I knew that had basketball courts as a kid. So I remember going to play basketball there. I had a buddy's mom who she was a part of that church and kind of always talked favorable about that church. But at 22, I stayed up all night at a party. And I remember because I always sensed, like you can look back and I sensed that there was a divine order and a divine belief system in my heart. We never explicitly said that, okay, God, XYZ. I remember my grandma took me to church a couple times, but my mom was never anti-God. My dad was never anti-God. It just wasn't at the forefront of everything we talked about. But looking back, there was this sense like, how did this world get here? even if someone says, well, there's a big bang that set it in motion. Okay, cool. Okay, who set the big bang in motion? And then last time I checked, how does order come out of chaos? So there's divine order everywhere. There's just orchestration in even at a cellular level. So I can remember, getting high, talking about, all right, is there a God? Where'd God come from? What about aliens? And we would just always be deep thinkers. But that was the grace of God. He set me apart at a young age. He was pursuing me when I wasn't pursuing him. He was inviting me in. He was showing himself real to me. And then that crossroads, if you will, came at a head of Easter Sunday. I'm at this party. I'm talking to everybody. I said, man, I think I'm really going to change. And they said, I remember this girl was just like, bro, you said that so many times. Mm-hmm. Because I really didn't know how to change. I couldn't. Addiction is an addiction. You don't know how to break it. You think you want to. There's not enough rules. Like, I'm on probation. I'm failing probation. I'm, dropping dirty, all this crap. But I go Easter Sunday not knowing that Easter, I'm thinking, means basket, bunnies, candy, gift. But Easter Sunday is about that Jesus rose from the dead. And he defeated the final enemy. And I heard the gospel, the good news of Jesus, and I wept like a baby in the balcony. And I was thinking, it was my sin that killed Christ. It was so personal. It was similar to almost, I use this language, like a gang initiation. Like, he was initiated for me. I didn't deserve it. Or if I'm in court, I'm guilty. He steps in and he takes the punishment for me. And I was overwhelmed. I didn't have all the words and I didn't have all the language and so caught up with emotion. And I'm thinking, well, is this because I just stayed up all night? Maybe I'm hallucinating, like whatever this is. And preacher gives an opportunity, like, hey, whoever wants to ask for forgiveness of sin, whoever wants to lose their life and gain Christ, this is your moment. And all these people responded. There's probably 3,000 people in the church. It was packed, big church. Wow. And beautiful part of my story. Grateful for all the faithfulness and the faithful people of that church. But preacher stops. It was Pastor Dave Williams. He looks up and they're about to pray. And he goes, I just believe there's somebody else here. We have one more. And this little lady asked if I wanted to go up front. And well, I mean, she did have a clue because I was bawling. I was crying. And we're walking down from the balcony, going onto the main floor. And she goes, this is going to be the best day of your life. And I remember thinking this specifically. Christians are so weird. Like, this girl doesn't know. Like, how does she know? She doesn't know my pain. She doesn't know my family. She doesn't know my friends that aren't here anymore. She doesn't know what I'm dealing with. What does she mean this is going to be the best day of my life? But there was this sense, like a beckoning, it was almost like an out-of-body experience. And I know everyone's journey isn't like this, so people's testimonies are all different. But for me, this is my testimony. And I get ready to come up on the main floor. Preacher goes, we got one more. I was the only one that responded. And so all 3,000 eyes in that moment kind of peek from praying and make a look. And I went up front to the altar. And from that moment on, I've never been perfect, but the change has been permanent. Yeah. So I quit using drugs that day. Remember, it was kind of like a detox for like 2 weeks. I can remember trying to sin. I remember trying to get in trouble, and I couldn't. It was like a force field. I remember for about 2 weeks, I started getting drunk, actually, because drinking was legal. Yeah. But then I remember, clear as day, looking in the mirror. No, I felt like Holy Spirit said, your life's been bought with a high price. This is how you repay me. And never, from that moment on, never got drunk again. So the change in that moment of Easter Sunday 2002, at 22 years old, has transformed my life in the last 2 decades and set a whole different trajectory from that moment. But I don't want anyone to think it's about being perfect from that moment. Like, I've needed forgiveness time and time again, but I've never been the same.
Yeah, with having tearing up over here a couple of times. That's beautiful, Jerome. Really, that's beautiful. I'm just gonna let that sit there for a second. No, that's great. Really, that's the only part that I can always relating, not comparing. The only part I can relate to is I was done. The drugs, just like that. That's God can do for you what you cannot do for yourself. Period. I mean, period. Those are not extravagant promises. So 22, how do you get into ministry? I don't want to jump too far ahead, but after something like that, I mean, that had to have been a pretty big calling, or did it not even cross your mind at that point?
The only thing that crossed my mind was whatever I experience today, I need to learn everything about this.
Okay.
So I became a church boy. If church was open, I was there.
Okay.
If there was a service, a class, or anything, I was there. And I'm not a yes man. So I'm not somebody who's just blind faith, or someone could say, oh, that was a crutch and that worked for you. No, like I'm really wrestling to see, okay, is this objective? What does this worldview mean? So I'm studying, scrutinizing it, and just walking it out. But I'm finding that the ways of Jesus is the ways of truth. So I give up rap music, give up my whole old life, if you will, and my friends are celebrating it. They're like, go. So I'm grateful for them. Like, shout out to all of them, and that they encouraged it. It wasn't like, oh, forget you, you're nobody, like you left us. It was like, no, you know, every once in a while they go to church with me. It was almost out of, hey, if you're about this, like we're about this. All right, cool. So I was grateful for that.
Yeah.
But I'm learning what it means to be new. I'm like, it's a new life. You know, scripture talks about when you accept Christ, you're born again, and you go from a baby to a mature manhood, if you will. And so I was just walking that process out, and I associated rap music and with sin. So I gave up rap music, thinking I'll never rap again. Like I in a form hated rap music, because here's this music used to glamorize sex, drugs, rock and roll, if you will, just like go, go, go. But I was off, because, man, the devil didn't create music. The devil perverted and distorted music. God created music. So it was about a year after being at church all the time, whenever I could, sit in the back, taking notes. Every sermon, I would buy the CD at the end of the week. I would listen to it. I didn't even know Christian music. Like, my first worship album was at Speedway, filling up this clunker in 1986 Dodge Aries. And lady, she must have seen me. She actually comes over and was like, hey, I feel like God told me to give you this. It was a bunch of ones to get gas. I was like, oh, thank you. Like, I was like, maybe God told you to do that. Amen. I know God, you know, and I was grateful. But if you filled up your gas tank, you could buy a 99-cent CD that was a Christmas album. So that Christmas album, the first Christmas, I was like, oh, Christmas is about Christ. Christmas mass. Like, oh my goodness, I need Christ. And I used to listen to that CD. And it was my first Christian worship album, was Christmas songs from Speedway for 99 cents. And, but so I'm at church, I'm obviously learning how to do this thing. And somebody comes up to me about a year after that Easter Sunday and said, have you ever heard of Christian rap? And I was like, Christian rap, what's that? And they gave me a Christian rap album. And then I realized, whoa, rap can be used for God. Rap can be used in a way to communicate and testify. So then I just started meeting with the church leaders, like, hey, I think I felt like God was calling me into rap music. But I didn't want music industry. I wanted music ministry. So he gave me a love for the gospel and gave me a love for the church. And I wanted to be used as a bridge builder to the church for the youth. So anyone who felt, you know, least, last, lost, felt outsider, misfit, alienated, didn't feel understood, felt mistreated, whatever, like that's where we wanted to bring the message. That is the audience that was on our heart, but we wanted to also communicate, hey, you have a family and a body and a team that you can be connected to, the bride of Christ, the body of Christ. You might have seen this building as a weird place with just a cross on top, but it's not. It can be a place of home and safety, and to learn the ways of God and grow in the Bible. So music ministry became that for us. Share the gospel through this rap music, build bridges to the local church, and go impact the youth. So we started doing that after a couple years of walking with it, and then just start building a plane while we fly it. And the first song we made was a song of my testimony. It's called Sins Away. And I just talked about the divorce. I talked about getting arrested. I talked about a friend coming to my house to pick up a bunch of nonsense who they blew a stop sign and one of them died. And I talked about honoring him. And And that song went on secular radio in Lansing, secular, which means non, like people would say it's Christian. I don't like the sacred secular conversation. I think God is everywhere. And he doesn't look at people like that. But it was the largest rap station at the time in Lansing. And that song Sins Away won a competition, and it like really cut through the airwaves. And then that kind of made a way for us. And then we started rapping at bars, prisons, and youth groups, and any place that they would take us. Schools, assemblies, Mason, going back there, testifying, like letting people know what time it was.
You want to talk about knowing it's of God, making it like that in a couple of years. That's incredible. And I like how you just said that, building the plane as you fly it. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
I can relate to that one.
Yeah,
Building the plane as you fly it. Shoot, man. So first couple of years, you start doing that. I'm still wondering, when did you get into? Because I didn't know you. So okay, so 10 years ago, you came and picked me up, and you really impacted my life greatly. Were you a pastor then?
I was on the beginning journey of becoming a pastor.
Okay.
But you caught me right at the in between when I get a phone call, hearing about what you're going through, and family, listen to my music, know what I've went through, thought, man, it'd be really good if you could connect with Nathan. I was like, sure, man, it'd be my honor, knowing that there's somebody else going through something similar. And if my music or in any way, shape or form could encourage, provide hope, a sense of just letting somebody know like, hey, it's not one for one, but I can relate to what you're feeling and facing.
Yep.
So wanted to, but I was a music missionary artist at the time.
Okay.
So was full-time at that point.
Okay, right on.
Just that was what I was doing. So
Okay.
we were funded. People would support us and donate to us so we could do concerts for free. Kids could get a CD for free. There was a book called, and still available, called Get Rooted. So kids could learn what it meant to do life change afterwards. And that's what we were funded to do. So I was so grateful people were supporting us to go out and share that. So that's how we were able to record and get the content out there and then give it to anybody and anyone, anywhere. So when kids came to the concert, they didn't have money. We wanted them to, every kid left with a CD. And then that burden though was, hey, how do we not just go from city to city, help church to church, help, school to school? How do we just put our roots down? And I thought, definitely rappers aren't pastors. So I never felt qualified. I never felt good enough. But God would speak to me in that insecurity. And I remember there was a moment I went back to this creek we used to party at and have a real come to Jesus conversation for about 3 hours. We're just sitting there and really wrestling, like, who am I? And I felt like the Lord said, your life's been bought with a high price. You don't get to decide how you'll use it. I want to use it to pastor. And you'll get to go love people and share the good news in a concentrated way and just bloom where you're planted. So we live in Lansing at that time. So after high school, ever since then, I've been living in Lansing. Okay. So Lansing in 2013 had 9 shootings in 6 days. And the inner city schools were testing the lowest 5%. So that felt like a bat signal cry, if you will, was, look, here's what your own city's going through. You can keep going to help all these other places. And we were helping Lansing too. Or you could just put your roots down and why don't you just go help those kids that are in the schools? Why don't you just go show up and see if you can tutor? Why don't you just go see if you can and do concerts in those neighborhoods where there's violence? And that became the genesis, if you will, the beginning seeds of really breaking our hearts to say, okay, we want to be a part of that solution. Not thinking that we're the solution, but believing that the love of God is. So how can we be conduits and partner with what he wants to do because he loves people? So then it was like, hey, we love the music world, but it's time to put that more on the back burner if we're cooking. It's not front burner right now. Front burner is this. Like front burner is always marriage, kids, but then the ministry component of it, how do we be a part of serving that? Helping that in Lansing, helping that right in the city in front of our face.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So that became what we now know as City Life Lansing, with a call to love the city.
Perfect. I'm going to get into asking that. I feel like I jumped. When did you get married? How many kids do you have?
Yeah, that's good. That's the story.
The
story is 25 at church boy, starting to make music, really wanted to get married, do it the right way,
Yeah.
write my journal, like the next girl I date, I want it to be the one, if you will, and just trying to do it right.
Yeah.
And ended up meeting my wife, and amazing. So 20 years, she's the real hero to the story. She's the backbone. She's the metronome to the song. She holds it down. She's the real deal. I wouldn't be able to do anything. We wouldn't be able to do anything. So married for 20 years now. And then that's come on, let's go. Yeah. And then we had our first kid at about 3-4 years in.
Okay.
And and then now we have 5.
Okay.
Ended with twins. So 4 boys and 1 girl.
Okay.
And that is the greatest journey, the greatest whatever. I don't even have the language for it. It's way more important than any album, any church service. I mean, that's what it's all about, the family.
Did you cry the same for the first as you did for the 5th?
It was everyone was. I had a mentor say something like, "You'll experience love you never felt before, and each one you'll have a different type of love." I'm thinking, no way, you'll have the same love, but it's like, no, it's just different, but it's all equal. Yeah, but it's beautiful. It's unlocking. Like you got a cat named Zelda. It's like unlocking a Zelda map. It's like unlocking a new world. Yep. That's what it's like. It's like, whoa, you didn't even know this existed. And it's not if someone's not married or doesn't have kids, they're not on the B team. They're not second tier. Like they have an effective life and call if that's what they're called to. So I don't want to act like this is the only way. But for our journey, being that this was a way, it became the way for us. Wow, I can see how it's been used to develop me, how I'm honored to invest in the kids and be a part of serving them so they can become all that God has for them. But yeah, I cried at all of them in all special ways.
That's cool.
Yes,
yeah, that's cool. That is. I forgot to ask. So, 22, when you first getting into church, what was your job? Like, what did you do for work?
Yeah. So, okay, it really is building a plane while you fly. So at that point, the magazine I was working for with my mom, it was no longer. So I'm in an interim place. I need a job. So shout out. Now I'm living with my dad. So I was doing the kind of, after my parents got divorced, I was doing the every other weekend thing. But and then as I got older, if I'm beefing with mom, then I'm gonna go to dad's for a year or two. So I'm with dad at this stage. So now I'm with dad at 22, and I don't have a place to work. Up till that point, I cleaned cars with him too. So he was a car salesman, then became a car manager. So I detailed cars. That was my first job with him. We're covering 30 years, so there's all kinds of little touch points in there. Yeah. But right out of with the new church life, someone heard that I cleaned cars before, so they asked if I wanted to help launch their detail car place. Cool. And then he was selling interior repairs at car lots. So where if it was a rip in leather, or there's cigarette burns so he would repair them, but I'd go out and I'd sell it. So I'd go from car lot to car lot to car lot selling those repairs. So I was getting ready. I wanted to get married, like I wanted to get some money, and I had a 500 credit score. I was in debt. I had no idea. I burned every bridge known to mankind. You're trying to get lawyers, all that crap. Yep. But so I'm doing that. So selling interior repairs. He launches a car detail shop. I'm kind of managing that. And then that goes out of business. But one of the car lots heard that happened and said, "Hey, what about that young dude? Does he need a job?" So then the only thing I said I never wanted to do, be careful what you say in life. The only job I said I never wanted was to sell cars. And I didn't want to sell cars because parents get divorced. And I just remember my dad then going cold turkey. So he's stay-at-home dad, for most of my life up to that point. My mom's out doing sales for this paper. And, the family unit, we're rocking, we're rolling. But then my dad goes and sells cars after the divorce. Well, car business is 2 late nights a week till 9, Saturdays always. Yep. I just remember thinking, that sucks, whatever that is. 6 days a week, and I never want anything to do with car sales. Yeah. Ever. That was the only thing I never wanted to do. And then I find myself with the only job offer, sell cars. But my why was bigger than the what. So I'm like, I want to get music out there. I want to get married. And let's go. So it's straight commission car salesman at a B lot, it's called. So not an A lot, a big dealer lot, but it's a B lot, a smaller one, like, 30 cars, stuff like that. But I start selling cars, and I get a, part of it is you get a company car.
Yeah.
And I remember vividly thinking, I can't wait to be out of here. And for about 2 years selling cars. And now I'm married. We're selling cars. Like, God's using it. We're getting out of debt, trying to get out of debt. I remember I kept sensing in prayer, will you work here for the rest of your life? And I'm like, I don't want to work here for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I'm not working here. And it would keep coming up. And I sensed, though, like, in order to graduate, I needed to really let go and say, fine, your will, not my will. And I remember there was a moment late at night, and I was at the lot by myself, and I just remember crying. It was like, fine, God, if you want me to work here the rest of my life, I will. And I felt a whisper say, you'll be out of here within 6 months. And I got recruited to then, about 6 months later, got recruited to go sell copiers for a company called Toshiba. So I was a document solution sales consultant.
Yeah.
But I really believe it was letting go.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we want to exit a season instead of really embracing the lesson that I need to learn and surrendering to what God's doing. So I think that surrender night, and I don't know if it's a 1-for-1. I don't know. It's quite a mystery. God's ways are higher. I can't figure it all out. But that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it did then happen that I got out of there in 6 months. But it really came with saying, fine, and really letting go. And it wasn't easy. I wasn't, I was like, no, anywhere but here, And it wasn't that the car lot was bad. My boss was amazing. But it's really, you're getting prepared.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight is 2020. I've referenced that a few times, but even the manager, the owner at the car lot, he sold copiers before. He had twins. Fast forward, I had twins. I ended up selling copiers. So it's that teacher presents itself when the student's ready to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I would have humbled myself even earlier, I wonder what lessons more I could have learned from him, from the car lot. And been even more of an extreme owner and tried my best instead of, bah humbug. Yeah. So that was some of the day to day, you pay to play. We were funding a new habit, if you will.
Yep.
We were funding the music. Way better. A life-giving one.
That's
Hope dealing, not dope dealing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man. So, we got about another 15 minutes. I try to give a heads up just so I
we don't cut you off.
Yeah, just so I abruptly don't say I'm done. So now the main part, I guess, what I know you for now, city life. So when did you start that?
Yes.
Or how does that work? When did you start it? When did you guys start it? I don't know how to ask.
Well, 2013, before City Life started in 2015.
Okay.
That what was going on in the newspaper and the news felt that it needed attention and that we were supposed to be a part of serving that.
Yeah.
And we then started working on how do we serve that? We started teaming up with a church out of Philadelphia called City Life Philly.
Okay.
And shout out to Pastor Brad Leach, who was trying to recruit us to go to Philly. But in that conversation, it was a prophetic type dinner where it was looking at my wife and I and said, do you feel called to plant a church? And I said, that was the only thing I really never shared with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a moment that was pretty powerful a few years before that, recording down in Atlanta and being at a church plant, and sensed that was something I was going to do. But sometimes when you just don't feel qualified, you feel inadequate, not capable, you just bury that.
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment, he was trying to bring us to Philly, and he says, hey, wait, is that in you? So that was really powerful on his part, and shows the type of integrity and that he really wants to be sensitive to not just building his own thing, but whatever is the right thing.
Yeah.
So we started sharing with him about what was going on in our hearts for Lansing and what was going on in the neighborhoods. And there's a passage in Jeremiah 29 that talks about seeking the welfare of the city. And in the city's welfare, you'll find your welfare. And that was a pivotal chapter to say, love the city, serve the city, seek the welfare of the city. the city which I placed you, which I planted you, bloom there, and try your best to bring shalom, peace, spiritual, emotional, physical, and go help kids. And so the cry was, before even the church, was first bring love to those places. So Love the City was it.
Awesome, man. For 2015, you start. How is it planning a church? I don't know how to ask that.
How was it like? Because you said 2015 is when you established.
Yeah.
So like, how was the first 5 years and then into COVID? Like, how was that?
Yeah, no, it's the most sanctifying thing in your life. I tell people, you don't sign up. You don't sign up to plant a church, and you don't go, being a pastor isn't something that you think you can do. It's actually something that God finds you, and you realize only He can do it. A quote is, a pastor plants a church to reach the city. God plants the church to reach the pastor. I'm not sure there's any other arenas or jobs that would be so past my pay grade, that I would be so dependent on Him in the need, the help and support of others. You just can't do it on your own. So how was it? Very challenging. You're talking money. You're talking tough neighborhoods. You're talking serving inner city schools. You're talking then real life situations. I believe there's a spiritual battle going on all the time between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of darkness. So that first year, one of my best friends took his life. And we're 2 months into a new church plant and pastoring. And then here's all my, one of my childhood best friends' families all in the middle of service. So you're processing your own grief, your own pain, and trying to serve and be there as well. And you're front row to the best, and you're front row to the worst, and you and others. So what is it like? Oh, it is drinking from a fire hose. It is very challenging. So in all of the ways, it stretched us past the point of even being able to, in your own strength, do it. It really is, when I'm weak, God is strong. And trusting that, and then doing that on repeat and repeat. And then you realize, whoa, okay, this is for my own sanctification. This is for my own development. This is for my own maturation. And then going into COVID was just that again and again and again.
Did it make it like, did you have to social distance? Did you guys have to like not do services? Did you have to do extremely small services, tell people they couldn't come in?
Yeah, we rent from the school district. So us leasing from the school district means that we're going to abide by their policies. So if they couldn't meet, we couldn't meet. So that was then challenging. And so what we did was, in the middle of COVID, because of the social distancing and everything, and you needed to live with people, that's the only people you could associate with. We had all kinds of guys that lived in a duplex where we were at, and we did church online. We turned the whole house into an online TV studio, and we did church online because we really want to serve people with hope, serve people with love, serve people with the word, serve first our congregation, but then also the world. So we kept coming up with content in COVID specifically that would hopefully be value add, that was on demand, and doing different things so people could have, we call it Zoom at noon. They could have a touch point every day at noon that would be community outlets, be there for therapy, be there for encouragement. So that's, we couldn't meet. 2, we turned our place into a TV studio. And then 3, we just started going. So all the people of that season are warriors. But that's not to discount the real warriors that are front lines doing stuff, and the first responders, and our real, warriors that serve this country and serve countries all over. Like, there's an honor reference for that too.
What's your favorite piece of scripture?
Matthew 6:33, seek ye the kingdom first and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. That chapter talks about worrying about money, worrying about clothes, trying to build your treasure in this life. And God reminds us in his word there that just seek first God. Seek first him. And then all these other things will take care of himself. Money, clothes, where to go. Today has enough troubles of its own.
Mhm.
So we could try to be so overwhelmed by tomorrow's problems or so caught up from yesterday's pain.
Mhm.
But let me today, God is my daily bread. Let me today be present that God is with me. That verse reminds me, keep the main thing the main thing.
Is that the passage that talks about the bird and the worm and the
So-
wolf and it says something about that that the bird doesn't wake up worried about where he's going to find his next worm, and the wolf doesn't worry about
His coat growing in
about
for
his coat
winter.
growing in for the winter. I just read it in Matthew, but
Yeah.
I was just
No,
curious.
that's one's the birds in the lilies. How he dresses the lilies and the birds find food as well. But yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, in one sense, depending on the translation, that
Right on.
very similar.
Cool. I was just curious.
Okay, so do you get burned out, and how do you manage burnout?
It's good. Yeah, all the time. And anytime you're a super achiever that wants to get stuff done, not super achiever like humble brag, but you think you can get more done than you can, and then you realize you're not unlimited. You're a human being, not a human doing. So therefore, there's been times when I just burn the candle too far at both ends.
Yeah.
And so what have I had to learn? Like there's seasons of there was depression, anxiety, and your own just mental health in the day-to-day of being optimistic. So then I just started learning all kinds of different disciplines where it's I read an identity statement. Who am I every day? The power of gratitude. 3 things I'm thankful for today, 3 things I'm thankful for yesterday. To create those pathways that yesterday was beautiful. It's a gift. Life's a present. Today's the present. Let me treat it as such, as a present, a gift. So I do that. Breathing techniques, Headspace app for meditation, get to bed earlier. So that's the kind of stuff I do. And then just get off the grid. Jesus wasn't always accessible. And if he wasn't always accessible, how in the world do I think in a world that is nonstop accessible? There's, so not managing my own social media, not managing, having a new phone, like that kind of stuff just helped me because I can't be there for everything. Because then what if you say yes to everything, you're literally going to be spread out. You can't. You're limited. So you got to say no so you can say a big yes to my wife, to my kids. And I'm in a different season. So what do I do? All that stuff and trying to just turn it off every day. And then sometimes you need extended rest. So weekly, take a day off, a Sabbath, where I just stop, rest, delight, worship, and then take extended versions of that as well. But really, I think ultimately, if I had to sum it up, someone's listening like, okay, all that's great. Where do I start? Be kind to yourself. So whatever you're feeling, you might be frustrated. Don't try to force that out of you. Embrace that, receive it. You're tired. Don't think you always got to push through.
Self-care is selfish, right?
Come on. But it's not.
Care.
But it's critical.
What day do you practice your Sabbath?
What's that?
What day do you do your Sabbath?
Oh, it's moved in some seasons, but right now it's typically Saturdays.
Okay, I was just curious because I'm like, I've always thought that because preachers preach on Sunday.
Correct.
Like, so what do you do then?
Yeah, but it's always hard because you feel a little bit of pregame jitters.
Okay.
In healthy versions, you want to serve the situation well. Not a God complex thinking it falls on your success, but yeah, Saturdays can be challenging because Sunday's coming.
Yeah.
It is Saturdays right now.
Okay. Before we ask our wrap-up questions, what's your next 5-year goal, if you're allowed to say, for City Life or for you? And what are you still doing about music? Because we didn't talk too much about that. So
yeah. Well, music, the last project we did, I don't feel called right now to do another project. So that last project was called One. And that's what it's all about. One with God, one with each other, one life at a time. And the premise, I guess kind of the big idea for that is one isn't that big of a number. It's just not. There's 8 billion people in the world. There's trillions of dollars people are trying to get. But when one is you, one is your wife, one is your kid, one is the biggest number. So we can start seeing people as I'm the one, you are the one, and we can be one at one life at a time, breaking it down in that way. We have way more in common than against.
Yeah.
So that whole project has an audio album, a movie, and then a book with it. So
Right.
Jerome Vierling 1, that though felt it was necessary to release, but I don't feel called right now to start something new. I feel called to be father, thinking about what does it look like to be a grandparent one day. I want to be intentional to steward this season. So music, I'm still involved with it, like in my own personal life as an outlet, always listening to it, always beatboxing, every once in a while freestyle, but I've always liked producing more. So I get to do that indirectly. Like you want your best fruit to be on others' trees, not yours. So when you're leading and you're serving and you're investing, you're hoping that your lives and anyone's life, somebody listening to that, there will be fruit in their lives. To me, that's what's really captivated this season of my life. And the pace I want to go is at the table, meaning dinner table, period. Like every night, eating dinner. And that's the pace I want to go right now. And so where does it look like in 5 years doing that? And then corporately, man, church is fascinating because it's not my gig. It's God's gig. He's building his church. Jesus is the head of the church. And I want to be a part of, in 5 years, whatever he is building in the region, in the 517 Lansing area, and hopefully the world, one life at a time, and however I can be used for that, in a way that is a spirit of oneness. That's my longing in the next 5 years to serve the region really well.
Awesome. Well, I hope so actually, before I ask my wrap-up questions, I forgot one more. Would you have gotten along with your younger self?
Oh, you stole my question.
Yeah. My younger self rocks. He just needed to recognize the purpose side of it.
Does it go both ways? Would your younger self get along with you now?
Yeah, he'd be way to not conform and way to not always like keep the kid alive like I do that, and we're just always trying to break barriers. Like, come on, play the game how you want to.
That's awesome, man. Hey, really. So is there anything I missed that you would like to share?
No, shout out to everybody. It's awkward to talk about my story because I want everyone to see that their story can be amazing too. So that's it. I just want people loud and clear, whether they've listened this long, like shout out to yourself and what God wants to do through you.
What's your definition of success?
Success is knowing that I gave my best and took steps when there was no savings left. Do you know what's driving me to launch deep in the sea when the waves make it hard to see? Why I go, why I breathe, staying up late nights is to become what he wants me to be. That's a line from the song Dreamer. And so in one sense, success is just being who you're supposed to be, period. But I would say, what about when you don't have enough money? What about when you don't have more grit, more energy, more time? What about when you do fail? Ultimately, success is recognizing not my ability, but what Jesus has won and completed. And when I put my faith in him, that's success.
Awesome. Katie?
If you could use one word, what's the catch is it has to be one word.
Love it.
To describe your entire journey from where you started, where you are, and possibly even where you will end up. What will that word be?
Love.
Perfect. Well, every week we give out a gift card. Every single week. Normally, people in Jackson get a local gift card, but you're not in Jackson, so we do gas cards. So there you go, man. Every week.
And then also, you have a pen?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I would say shout out to you, like for real. Like, so is you're giving me this, thank you. It's an honor to be here, but well done. Way to take your story and do the best that you can and take the pieces that you've been, given, or all the situations you've been given, and trying to build it and build a plane while you're flying.
Yes, sir.
And providing a space for people to share their stories. And that says a lot about who you guys are. So thank you.
Thank you.
Come on.
Thank you.
Come on.
All right, guys.
See you next time. Oh, did we have an outro?
We do, but not on the Facebook. It'll be on the StreamYard on the Prisoner to Painter.
Perfect. That's awesome.